This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi!
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Eddie Aragon is a New Mexican who has the best conspiracy theory stories. The best conspiracy theory stories. This one I had no idea you were going to do, so therefore it's a mystery to me, Walter Sterling. It's about a road that goes through Las Vegas that is apparently the murder conveyor belt of North America. Tell me about this road, Eddie.
Well, you're speaking of a concert called Route 91. And the U.S. Route 91, when you look at this, you're looking at Brigham City, I think, Utah, to Idaho Falls, Idaho. Is basically U.S. Route 91. But this is basically the name of the concert that happened right in front of Mandalay Bay. And it was there for years. It's a big festival. There's a fantastic bar inside MGM Grand that actually, it's called Losers. And the whole thing is like a shrine to Route 91. I mean, I remember that October 1st, 2017, when this whole thing went down. We're on Mountain Standard Time here in Albuquerque. I was in Albuquerque at the time. Las Vegas is second home. And I remember when the breaking news hit, it was a Sunday night when this happened. And to kind of set the scene for all this, Sunday night in Vegas is a time when people are, enjoying football. Go ahead. I just need to mention. Sure.
And then I won't interrupt you again. I was on the air when that happened, and I had a world-class radio newsman in Las Vegas, who I was able to talk to, who had all the relationships with the detectives and the police, and he was able to tell us it in play-by-play time, in real time. And yes, it was horrifying. But I also had detective friends in Vegas. And the most interesting conversation I had was a couple days later. And I said to one of them, and I don't think you're going to mention this, but I said to one of them, I said, where's the video? Where is I have not seen any video of this. I don't need to see people getting shot, but it's Vegas. And he said, well, Walter, you have to understand something about the cameras in the casinos and in the city. Most of them don't work. He said, when you see movies and TV shows that show tight shots of people playing blackjack and they can see them looking under the cards and moving around and everything, yeah, that's on TV. That's not how it works at all. There was very little video of this. Now, there may have been a conspiracy, but he agreed with me. There was a surprising lack of video about that horrible event. Sir, Eddie Aragon, please go ahead.
So that is, certainly troubling. There's lots of video from the inside of this 32nd floor room. He was in 32-135 of Mandalay Bay, which actually angled towards the corner and was facing outward. So it both faced the strip, the strip, Las Vegas Boulevard, and also faced, obviously, Route 91, the concert that was there. Now, there was 22,000 people packed into this Harvest Country Music Festival. This is like, conservative, pro-gun, a crowd that would certainly, is all about the red, white, and blue. I mean, it's an all-American crowd that's there. And, somehow a 64-year-old retiree who had been going back and forth between his property in Mesquite, and I've driven to Mesquite plenty of times. They've got a few great golf courses out there. It takes about 80 minutes, 90 minutes to get to Mesquite, okay? And Stephen, I should say, Paddock, started assembling his arsenal of rifles and bump stocks and ammunition, and bump stocks was like the key there. And I'm sure, that night when people are looking at this and they're hearing all these things, like, how can one person get out that number of rounds within a 10-minute time period? So to kind of, set the scene, you start hearing this stuff, kick off right around 10:05 is the exact time when things start firing off. And to your point about, there's video, there wasn't just video looking back up at the Mandalay Bay, but there was video coming from Mandalay Bay looking out towards Route 91, the concert. So what's really also disturbing is while that window was supposedly busted out, and that's one of the things that is kind of a telltale sign as to, how many people were firing. Can someone get out that number of rounds at that time? Also, the proximity to all the private planes that were right there. Because as close as Route 91 Harvest Festival was, Walter, also all the private planes where all the celebrities come in and out, he could just as easily have fired on those. So Jason Aldean was on the stage. They're kind of, kicking off into, I guess, the final set of the night. And all of a sudden you start hearing what sounds like this, just clicking, and in the distance. And you're watching the shot from inside Harvest Festival Route 91 concert. And all of a sudden, Jason Aldean, while he's on the stage, runs off the stage in a hurry. And immediately, these people probably are like 4 or 5, 10 beers in at that point. They're at the last set of the stage. They're in Vegas. They're inebriated. They're having a great time, living their life, all this kind of stuff. They have the wherewithal enough to start ducking. And as they just have a sheer rain of bullets that are coming in from across this 32nd floor from the Mandalay Bay. So you are looking at this from a 64-year-old retiree who had made not one, not two, not three, but 4 different trips to Mesquite, Nevada, to go ahead and continue to bring them on the little carrying. What was that thing called? Where the the bellhops, they take that little cart up, and he's covering those from inside the parking garage and bringing all this stuff up there. So I still to this day cannot think for the life of me how one person could have achieved all of that within 10 minutes. Killed nearly 60 people. Okay, I think the official number is like 60, and wounded another 150. Not to mention mentally damaging 22,000 people for the rest of their lives who are now suffering from PTSD because they've been involved in something like this. And it was massive chaos. The cameras on the streets tracking people, the flood that goes to the hospital that's at UNLV, which is about 6 miles away, the same place where Tupac died. They were trying to get all these people as quickly as they could. And there was no way that they were organized for, this type of thing. So there's a lot of narratives out there that are kind of picking at this single shooter. Not to mention, Stephen Paddock had zero motivation. There wasn't a letter left behind. There wasn't anything. His wife was a Filipino. She lived in the Philippines at the time. There was monies that were being transferred. So people wouldn't ask questions. You, of course, know about the fact that his brother's house, he was entrapped after for asking questions, saying there's no way his brother was involved in any of this. His house burns down, and somehow they were able to seize, I don't know how many gigabytes of child porn from his computer at this, because they don't want people asking questions on this. So, the sheriff at the time that was there in Las Vegas, he eventually becomes governor of the state of Nevada about 3-4 years ago. The sheriff at the time, comes out and he has, one press conference after another press conference, and nothing really seems to line up in all of this. The earliest strands of speculation kind of grew out of the cell phone recordings, the eyewitness accounts.
Eddie, from your point of view, what are some of the key elements that aren't lining up? What should we be paying attention to?
Well, we should have paid attention, right from the outset, that there was multiple shots coming from multiple points, both at the 32nd floor as well as the fifth floor. That has been verified. There's actual video shots. They didn't have that at the time, but later on you saw that there was fire coming out of the fifth floor. So that would certainly be a more linear way to sort of attack, if you will, the Route 91. Second is the number of trips that Paddock had taken, over to Mesquite. All of the guns, ammunition, equipment, all that stuff was not in his room at the very end. Plus, the third part is there wasn't a fully busted out window for him to get that amount of ammunition in that amount of time. They tried to recreate that, and they weren't able to do it. So because there's no manifesto, the guy doesn't have a criminal record. He did have one of those gambling debts over at Mandalay Bay. He was a little bit upset he wasn't making enough money like he normally has. He just doesn't seem like the right type of guy who would have gone out there and been activated after hanging out at the casino for 7 days to fire on Route 91. Now, there was another musical festival that was down the street. I think it was like the week before. It was a younger crowd. It was a little bit of a different crowd, multiple colors and all that techno trance music. He was supposedly supposed to go to that instead of doing the Route 91 concert. But none of the stuff lines up as a single shooter situation, and that's where I think really the confusion comes in.
This guy was using a stock rifle, and he shot how many people? 50, 60 people in a very short.
Over 60,
and it wasn't an automatic rifle, right?
It was an automatic. No, it was a full bump stock automatic rifle. But the number of rounds that he was able to churn out, he would not have been able to turn those out within 10 minutes. They were also coming from the fifth floor of the Mandalay Bay.
All right, Eddie Aragon, what do you think happened? If it wasn't this one guy with one gun shooting 60 people, what do you think happened?
I don't think it was just a mass shooting. This was a covert operation involving, weapons, explosive tracking. You've seen a lot of reports that have come out of that. Certain investigators have found ammonium nitrate, a component used in bomb making. Also, there was a lot of extensive weaponry, not just in his suite, but there was in other places in the hotel that's eventually come out, and you've seen that on TikTok. I happen to think that, Paddock was either like a broker or an undercover asset, intended to sort of lure people, a terror group or an organized network into purchasing those guns, those explosives, and other people helped him achieve what he was doing. He was certainly there in his suite. He took his own life prior to Las Vegas PD getting in there. They had to go up, as you've seen the video that's come in. They came in and immediately they started saying, what guns not here. There's a couple other things that LVPD does inside the elevator. When they all get back into the elevator, the lead a guy on taking the team up there to the 32nd floor says, turn off your cameras, turn off your cameras, turn off your cameras. If you've seen diagrams of that top floor, there's no way someone could not have taken him out in that amount of time. LVPD waited too long to get up to the 32nd floor, knowing that if he was a lone shooter, they would have been able to take him out within 5 minutes. No doubt in my life.
That alone was proof that he was not alone.
Exactly. And we overlook these things consistently, for whatever reason. I think because we're programmed or told, or we just can't believe it, or we want to go ahead and believe the official narrative, and then people just forget about it and they stop challenging it. And, it's very telling that something went sideways in all of this. I think the people who were with or getting whatever they were getting from Paddock, they realized they were being played, or they were somehow, involved. I think that the gunfire that rained down on the festival was sort of cover up or retaliation that ultimately ended up with Paddock being dead, and a simple lone gunman story gets to come out of that. I think it was much more complicated than that.